Got any 10s? Nope. Go fish. Got any 7s? Yes! Read them and weep. In your face! Nice. All right, so I get to give the announcements now, right? All right, you ready? So, how about a wager? If I win, I get to tell the announcements today. No. Come on, please. Absolutely not. Please, no. Please, no. Please, no. Please, no. Please, no. Please, no. Please. All right, fine. All right. Go ahead. Okay, so, first things first, welcome, happy Easter, we're glad you're here, yada, 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 all the stuff that Zach usually says. And first we're gonna do a game, and then some worship, and then a lesson, and then some more worship. Yeah, what else? The talent show. Oh yeah, thank you. There's the Victory's Got the talent show. Victory's Got Talent. Make sure that you, do that. Send us your funny videos, your talented videos. more like. This is hard. Instagram Live. Oh yeah, we're going live on Instagram every morning at 11 o'clock for Bible study. We're going through Ephesians. Going through Ephesians. Yay, Jesus. Make sure you put in the comments that you're here. Let us say hi to you. Or Zach, because he's the one that's going to be behind the computer when this is happening. Look at him, he's so cute. Stop, cut it out. Well, that's all we got for today. So thank you guys for joining us, and we hope that you have a happy... Oh no. Why, you little... All right, good morning, everybody. So glad that you joined us online this morning. We are going to play a game today called First to 10 Quarantine Edition. Now, if you've attended on a Sunday morning at church before all this happened, we've played different versions of this game before, where when something applies to you that shows up on the screen, you hold up a finger, and the first one who gets to 10 wins. Since we're doing this virtually, we're going to play it a little bit differently. If it's true for you, whatever comes up on the screen, put a number up in the comments according to how many have applied to you up to this point. Each time it applies to you, you increase your number in the comments. So, for example, if the first question was that pops up on the screen says, "I've danced on the moon with unicorns," and that applies to you, then you would put 1 in the comments. If the second thing is, "I've been to Urban Air in the last 10 days," well, that obviously doesn't apply to you because of quarantine, so you would not put a number in the comments. You wouldn't put anything there. Your number would still be 1. And then let's say the third question is, "I have not showered since quarantine began." If that applies to you, then you would put the number 2 in the comments because, you'd be holding up 2 fingers at that point. So basically the number in the comments just reflects how many fingers you're holding up on your own as it pertains to how many of these apply to you. Make sense? If you have any questions, post in the comments. We'll get back to you on that. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. Everybody get ready. Here's the first one. If you have joined a cause or signed an online petition, then put a finger up or a number in the comments. If this applies to you, put 1 in the comments or nothing if it doesn't. All right, next one. Have you had a family member freaking out about the virus? If that applies to you, put your number in the comments. How many fingers are you holding up at this point? All right. Next one. If you have been accused of having corona, maybe you were in the store and you sneezed and you have allergies and everyone around you parted the waters for you. You've been accused of having corona. How many fingers are you holding up? Put it in the comments. All right, next one. If you've purchased a video game online. All right, we're going to start moving a little quicker now. If you have spent 5 consecutive waking hours in your bedroom, meaning you're not sleeping, you're just hanging out in your room by yourself. Or maybe not by yourself, but just in your room for 5 hours straight, which I imagine is many of us. All right, how many you got? How many fingers you holding up? What's your number? Put it in the comments. Moving on. If you've cleaned your room since this all began, put your new number in the comments. Here we go. If you've seen a doctor for anything, maybe not because of the coronavirus, but just for anything at all since this all began, put that in the comments. What's your number at now? Next one. If you have done no exercise since quarantine began, put your new number up in the comments. Some of you might be getting pretty close. If you checked out a digital book from the library, you studious people, then update us with your new number in the comments. All right. If you have done all of your homework, first off, good for you. Second of all, update us with your new number in the comments. If you've reached 10, then good for you. We're going to keep on going and give a few other people a chance to get to 10. Also, this is fun, just getting to know more about each and every one of you. If you have fought with a parent or a sibling since being stuck with them in quarantine, update us with your new number in the comments. Next one. If you have been to your parents' job, not at home, meaning they took you to their office or something like that. Next one. If you've been to the grocery store since quarantine began, update us in the comments. What's your number at now? We're going to keep on going, just a few more. If you have explained your homework to an adult and they did not understand. Fortunately, my kids are not at the age yet where that is the case for me, but I'm sure my day is coming. Update us in the comments. Here's the next one. If you have rode over 50 miles in a vehicle since quarantine began, use your best guess. I know you're probably not looking at the mile meter on the car, but take your best guess. Maybe you've gone to see a family member somewhere else. Who knows? All right. Next one. If you've played a sport outside, some fresh air could do you good. Do you very good. All right, next one. Just a couple more. If you've watched the same movie 3 times since this all began. I have, because I have little children who want to watch the same thing over and over again. All right, last one. Are you guys ready? Here's the last prompt. If you've worn headphones to ignore somebody, put that in the comments. Update us with your most updated number. How many of you got to 10? Anybody not get to 10? Well, thank you all for playing. This has been fun and a very relatable game, as many of us are experiencing many of the same things. We're going to go ahead and move on with our gathering this morning. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you in a bit.
fight your own. I lift my eyes and throw fear aside and sing out into the night. 'Cause even when the world caves, even when the fight calls, even when the wars wage, I'll take heart. And I know you are greater, forever your Savior. I will sing your praise with all that I have, with all that I am, Lord. I'll stare down the waves, 'cause you own the tide. I'll still my soul and know you wait for me in waters wild, where faith walks above the storm. 'Cause even when the world caves, even when the fight calls, even when the wars wage, I'll take heart. And I know you are greater, forever your Savior. I will sing your praise with all that I have, with all that I am, Lord. With all that I have, with all that I am, Lord. And I won't let the storm weather my heart, won't let the darkness beat me down. Sing in the night my hope alive in you. I'll walk through the fire and not be burned, pray in the fight and watch it turn. Jesus, tonight I give it all to you. I won't let the storm weather my heart, won't let the darkness beat me down. Sing in the night my hope alive in you. I'll walk through the fire and not be burned, pray in the fight and watch it turn. Jesus, tonight I give it all to you, yeah. 'Cause even when the world caves, even when the fight calls, even when the wars wage, I'll take heart. And I know you are greater, forever your Savior. I will sing your praise with all that I have, with all that I am, Lord. With all that I have, with all that I am, Lord. Oh, 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 no, oh, oh. And I won't let the storm weather my heart, won't let the darkness beat me down. Sing in the night my hope alive in you. Now walk through the fire and not be burned, pray in the fight and watch it turn. Jesus, tonight I give it all to you. I won't let the storm weather my heart, won't let the darkness beat me down. Sing in the night my hope alive in you. I'll walk through the fire and not be burned, pray in the fight and watch it turn. Jesus, tonight I give it all to you.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Easter, and welcome back to week 2 of our series, Undefeated. We're talking in this series about how through Christ we have victory and that we don't have to live in the feelings of defeat because that's not our reality anymore. I shared with you last week that I am undefeated when it comes to the arena of tetherball. And I'm quite proud of my undefeated record, but if I'm being quite honest with you, then for everything that I feel good about, there are probably 20 other things that I don't feel good about and things that I do feel defeated in. I know a thing or two about defeat as well. I grew up in a small school, and when I was playing basketball, I remember there's a time where a team literally beat us 72-6. 72-6. It's not fun. Everybody loves to feel undefeated because we know what it feels like to feel defeated. And feeling undefeated is a much more rare of a sensation than feeling defeated is. You and I feel and wrestle with feelings of defeat every single day. Many of us multiple times a day. If there's something in your life that you feel defeated in, share it with us in the comments, because odds are many of us struggle with the exact same things. I feel inadequate. I feel incapable to bring my best self to the table every time I go somewhere. I feel like I'm not worth enough. I'm not doing enough. And the reality is many of us wrestle with that all the time. The feeling of defeat is far too familiar with many of us. And so I'm so excited for this series because we're going to talk about how that does not define us. Feelings of defeat are not the end, and they don't have to have that hold on our lives that so many of us let defeat have. So what is it for you? What is in your life that makes you feel defeated, maybe worthless, undervalued, make you feel like you're not enough? Maybe it's you got that test score back and you thought, man, I killed it because I was online, and you got online to check your grades and it just wasn't the case. Maybe you were actually panning out to have a good season before all this happened, and now you don't get the chance to compete anymore. Whatever it is for you, many of us feel this all of the time. But then there's another kind of defeat, isn't there? And it's a little bit more debilitating than that. And sure, some of those things don't seem like a big deal to some of you, but for many of us, those feelings are very real and very large. We feel disappointed, let down, lonely, hurt, undervalued, worthless. And those things, even though it's seemingly little things that have caused those feelings in themselves are rather huge. And they're very real in our lives. And it makes us feel like we can't get back up and we can't keep going sometimes. Now, I know many of you have been there. Many of you shared that with me. I know many of you've talked to your small group leaders and you've poured your heart out about the times where you feel like you're not enough. But maybe even more debilitating than some of those feelings of defeat when it comes to those circumstances, there's yet another kind of defeat that we feel when it comes to life. The kind of defeat that we like to keep close to the chest and keep secret, the kind of defeat we don't like to talk about. Maybe it's that you can't seem to stop self-harming. Maybe it's that you can't shake the feelings and the thoughts that you have inside your head. Maybe it's that you can't stop looking at porn. Maybe it's that you have some other kind of addiction that you can't seem to get away from. So not only are you feeling defeat in areas of where you're not measuring up as far as competition in school and sports and whatever it is, but there's also feelings of defeat in your spiritual life or in your personal life where you feel like you're just not even living up to the habits or the person that you are. And so there's that kind of defeat as well. And when we take all of that defeat into consideration, many of us feel very low and just not enough. Many of us just frankly feel defeated. Maybe all the defeat has just left you feeling ashamed, embarrassed, alone, like you could never quite measure up. Maybe it's left you wondering, is there ever going to be a way for me to overcome these feelings, for me to overcome defeat, for me to overcome the feelings of inadequacy in my own life? But here's the good news, is that there is a way for you and I to defeat the things that we're struggling with rather than allowing them to defeat us, rather than allowing them to break our spirits and hold us back from the true potential that God has called for us and has for us in our lives. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Defeat does not have the final word. Defeat is not the end of the story. In fact, today, this Easter morning, we're going to talk about the ways that Christ Himself has overcome defeat once and for all for each and every one of us. Now, this is the time of year where churches all over the country and all over the world are coming together and they're celebrating the fact that Jesus conquered death, that Jesus died on the cross. If you watch the Good Friday service, then you kind of know what this is about. Or if you've ever grown up in church, this is not unfamiliar territory for you. But we celebrate the death of Jesus. Why? Why would we celebrate death? To someone on the outside looking in, or maybe who hasn't gone to church a whole lot, they look at that and they think, what is wrong with these people? Death is the thing that we fear the most. Death is the thing that we run away from more than anything else. Death is the thing that you and I don't want any part of. We don't want death in our relationships. We don't want physical death in our lives. We don't want death of any kind. So why on earth would we get together this time of year, every year, and celebrate the death of Jesus? It seems like the ultimate defeat. The man who was supposed to be the prophesied Messiah, the man who's supposed to deliver people from suffering, the man who's supposed to deliver Christians and deliver God's people. Why are we celebrating his death? Doesn't that seem counterintuitive? But the truth is, we're not just celebrating his physical death, because if you know the end of the story, and we'll talk about this more next week, he didn't stay dead. The grave didn't stay full. It's now empty. We celebrate a resurrected Lord, but we don't just celebrate his physical death. We celebrate the death that he conquered through his death. We celebrate all the things that he defeated with his death and the things that he chose to do to lay down his life for us out of love. That is what we celebrate, and that is what changes us. It's what makes us see our lives differently and value differently. There's a passage in the book of the Bible called Hebrews that the author wrote to us and wrote to the church at that time specifically about this. And the believers at that time, especially the Jewish believers, were struggling with what it meant to celebrate a crucified Savior. And here's what he writes about this to all those who are struggling. He says this in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. So while his audience, much like us today, were struggling with feelings of defeat, struggling with where does this all fit in with the story of God's plan, and why are we celebrating his death? And while those people were struggling with that, the writer of Hebrews reminds them of one very crucial and important thing. And it was in the very first part of that verse. Fixing our eyes on Jesus. See, he's the author and the perfecter of our faith. Without him, there's no reason for us to gather together. There's no reason for worship. There's no reason for living the lives that we do. And there's no reason that we would have any value except because of Jesus. And if we fix our eyes on him, that is the very first step in recognizing the way that he sees us. So when it comes to what we celebrate every Easter, the death and resurrection of Jesus, there are two things that I want you to remember. First off is that Jesus died for us. He endured the pain and the suffering and the shame of the cross so that we would never have to. Let me explain what I mean by this. So let's say that this glass represents you. Now, you and I are not perfect. In fact, you and I have made some mistakes. We've fallen short a few times. The book of Romans says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And you know what? There is such thing as sin. And we have free will. So we can choose whether or not we're going to devote our lives to sin, to ourselves, to our own selfish nature, or to God. And we have the choice to choose. But ultimately, Jesus was the one who came and made all things right after sin took place. We talked about this a little bit last week, but Jesus is the only one who is pure. And in fact, we would be made pure as well if it weren't for sin that got in the way between us and Jesus. And I know you're looking at this, and sometimes you look at other people and you think, well, maybe they have it all together. They're not doing anything wrong because look, they look just great on the outside. But I can tell you that if I were to turn the lights out and reveal what's actually under the surface, you'll see that actually, even if we look good on the outside, we're not. Sin nature lives within inside of us. Each of us have a natural bent towards sin. Each of us has a sinful nature. And each of us have fallen short of the nature and the glory of God. We're not as pure and clean and clear as what we seem on the outside sometimes. And you can see that sin has had its way in us, even when we think that we've got everybody fooled. But some of us, see, we don't even need to look good on the outside. It's perfectly clear, and we're able to see that we have chosen sin. And sin, once it takes hold in our lives, it completely distorts us. It makes us not into the person that God designed us to be. It made us unclean in the sight of God. And it ultimately separates us from Jesus even further. Every time we gave into addiction, every time we submitted ourselves to our own desires at the expense of somebody else, every time that we chose to walk away from the plan that God had for us, it's in the little choices. And day by day, and at every choice that we make, we have become more and more polluted by sin the longer that we're alive. And in the Old Testament, there had to be sacrifices that were made in order to make us pure again, but it wasn't really a complete sacrifice, because no sacrifice could ever make us completely pure again and without blemish. But what Jesus did on the cross was He took the punishment of sin upon Himself so that you and I can take sin out of the picture. And once we accept Him into our lives, He makes us pure again. He takes away the consequences of sin. He takes away the pain and the sorrow, and He makes us who we were always meant to be, pure and blameless in His sight. In fact, He can take away all sin. When He died on that cross, He didn't just take away your sin, He took away all of the sin of the world. And He poured out everything of His own life and took the punishment for us. He gave His life and was obedient even to death on a cross so that you and I can live with Him inside of us again. So that you and I can live the way that we were designed, whole and complete, perfect. That is what Jesus did on the cross. I love the way Paul says it in 2 Corinthians. He says this in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 21. God made Him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in Him we might become the righteousness of God. So not only did Jesus take the punishment of death for us, but it says that He Himself took our sin for us as well through that death. And through that death, He conquered death. That's why I love in Revelation chapter 12, it says He conquered death by death. We no longer use the same weapons. We no longer fight in the same way the rest of the world. We win through death. The dying of ourselves, the dying to our sin, and being filled with His Spirit in our lives. So right now before God, you have Jesus' perfect record. When God looks at you, He doesn't see the stains of sin anymore. He sees a risen Savior. He sees His Son. He sees Jesus, who has made you pure once again, who has made you righteous, because He took the punishment that brought us death upon Him so that you and I wouldn't have to. So that you and I can stand before God blameless, whole and complete, not lacking in anything. Jesus died to defeat sin so you wouldn't have to. And no longer does death represent the end of the road. No longer does it represent defeat. Death just represents the new beginning, the new celebration. It's a rite of passage. And each and every day, you and I have the opportunity to die. We have the opportunity to die to ourselves, to our past, to the way that we see ourselves. We get to die to our old way of living, of gratifying our own desires and living our lives for God. We can be raised to new life in Jesus, to allow Him to enter into us and make us whole again, to purify us, to make us pure and blameless, so that we can live our lives undefeated, so that we can live our lives victorious. We can live our lives with confidence, knowing the value that we have in Jesus. And that is why we celebrate His death, because it represents new life. If you know the rest of the story, Jesus didn't stay dead. And you and I don't either. So because of Jesus, sin is defeated. So what can you do to access the freedom that can be found in Christ? What can you do in order to take the next step in your faith? I'm going to give you 3 things. The first is this. Define what is defeating you. Okay? If you can define what it is it your own thoughts working against you? Is it lies that you're fighting not to believe, but you do believe? Maybe it's not mindset. Maybe it's an actual habit. Maybe it's an addiction. What is it that's defeating you? Define it. Give it a name, and then give it to Jesus. The second thing is to take a step towards defeating it. Hand it over to God. Tell somebody about it. Don't keep it secret anymore. If you want to stay stuck in defeat, then just keep it a secret. Don't let anybody know about it so that nobody can help you. Don't let anybody know about it so that you can just feel guilty and ashamed yourself, rather than allowing somebody else to speak words of truth into your life. Then maybe you need to set better boundaries so that you don't keep falling into the same traps of defeat again. Maybe it means putting little post-it reminders around your house. Maybe it means making your phone background something that's encouraging. If you want more advice on boundaries, we did a talk on that a couple weeks ago. But whatever it is you need to do, seek out some help. Seek out that next step that you need to take in order to step away from defeat and embrace the victory found in Jesus. The third thing is this, and this is really important. Ask God to remind you and help you remember who you are and how He sees you. One of the prayers that I pray all the time is for me to see myself through God's eyes and for me to see the people around me through His eyes. Not through the flaws that I see myself in, not the things that annoy me about other people or the things that I wish I could fix about other people, but see other people the way that God sees other people and see yourself the way that God sees you. Mindset is so huge. And in allowing God's Spirit to live and dwell inside of you, to help alter and transform your mind step by step, that's the path to victory. That's the road to being undefeated. So remember that it is because of Jesus that sin is defeated. As we close out this message, we're going to get ready to move into one more time of worship. We're going to sing to celebrate that Jesus is the way. He says in John that He is the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through Him. And we're going to celebrate that this morning because He has made a way. He has paved the path to victory. And you and I can live undefeated because of Him, because of the way that He has made for us. And as we move into this time where we worship together, I want you to think of this one question. What's one thing in my life that is holding me back? What is that one thing in your life that is holding you back? Maybe you've got a lot of things to choose from. Maybe you need to think for a minute. Once you think of something, I want you to give that back to God. Give it up to Him. Maybe during this song, talk to one of your family members about it. Talk to your mom or your dad. Maybe you need to get on the phone with somebody. Maybe you need to just hit the prayer request button here in the chat and just connect with us. You've got a whole host of small group leaders waiting to be here for you. What is holding you back? During this song, let's make this our prayer and let's give all things back to Him.
touching every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you, yeah, I worship you. I know you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. That is who you are. And that is who you are. And that is who you are. That is who you are. And 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 that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. And 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 that is who you are. That is who you are. And that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness.